You know those trans guys that are like, I always knew I was a boy? I am not one of those guys, okay? There were a lot of signs screaming, Quinn, you're a boy, but I didn't pick up on any of them. I was not the most emotionally intelligent as a child. And it's times like these that I wish I had been better at journaling so that I'd be able to recall more of my journey, I guess. I have a lot of conflicting memories about how I got to where I am today. As in, I think one thing happened, which was caused by one thing, but then I'll have another memory that suggests that something else caused that same thing. Like I have several timelines making up the same person. Maybe this is proof that multiverse is real. All that to say, I'm going to start talking based on the memory that I currently have, but I might remember it differently later. I don't understand my own brain, much less how to explain it to people. My memory is not very functional. Anyway, video. Growing up, I never really felt connected to the girls my age, although to be completely fair, I was also autistic and disabled, so that might have contributed to that. But despite not connecting with them, I also didn't think that I wasn't one of them, because I like the dolls, I like the dresses, I like the synchronized swimming. And while none of those things make someone a girl and they're not like inherently feminine, they are perceived that way because of stereotypes. So there was never any doubt from anyone, including myself, that I was just a girl. But like I said, there were signs. I always hated my chest. Like from the moment they sprouted, I was like, how do I get rid of it? I didn't really want to grow up because I knew that growing up wouldn't mean that I would grow into a woman, but at the time I didn't really realize that that's what I was afraid of. I just thought I was afraid of getting older, but that wasn't really the case. I knew it was impossible for humans not to grow up, so instead, I started wishing that I wasn't human in the first place. More specifically, I wished to be a robot like my favorite two TV characters, which were Zane from Ninjago and Astro Boy. I think it's very telling I was drawn to those characters in particular because they're both boys, but their bodies aren't what indicate that. It's how they choose to identify. Also, Zane is very autistic coded. Pretty sure that's why I liked him so much. There were a lot of other fictional animated characters in particular because I really liked animation growing up. This is very stereotypical for trans masks, but like Hiccup and Jack Frost and like Hiro Hamada, like those characters, I was like, I want to be like them. I was always so jealous of like how those characters looked. I wanted to look like them, but not realizing that that's what that feeling was. I never wore bras until like the end of high school when I was kind of forced to. Like even being made fun of for it was not enough for me to want to switch to an underwire bra. I was just stuck with my neon green sports bras. I didn't know what top surgery was, but I did know what a mastectomy was. So I assumed that I would have to have cancer if I wanted to have a flat chest again. So I started to wish that I could get cancer, fully aware of just how serious that is. I think the reason I knew about mastectomies in the first place was because of the show Jane the Virgin. There was a character who had to get a mastectomy, and she had to decide between a double mastectomy and a single mastectomy. And I was so confused of why that was even a question. I was like, why wouldn't you get the double mastectomy? And then was even more confused when I found out that most people who do get a mastectomy get breast implants afterwards. I was like, why would you do that? Why would you want to have, like if you had the option to not have boobs, why wouldn't you take that? Like I knew how intense cancer was. I knew how horrible it was. It's a terrible thing. I have watched family members suffer through it, but I was willing to take that risk because I was in so much distress. I really, really hated myself. On the topic of tits, I kept having emotional breakdowns or either like anxiety or panic attacks, or maybe they were meltdowns, I don't know. I was having some kind of like emotional disconnect every time that I had to wear an underwire bra. And it wasn't because of the underwire bra themselves, it was more because there was padding in all of them. Like it made my chest look bigger. And I really, really didn't like that. I think I mentioned this in another video I did, but when I was 16, somebody came out to me as non-binary, and I was so confused, not at the concept of being non-binary, but the fact that you could be something other than what you were assigned at birth. My gut was trying to tell me something, but I was not listening. I didn't realize I related to this person and all the descriptions of dysphoria. I wasn't really on social media at the time, but I did have YouTube, so I stumbled down rabbit hole after rabbit hole, just trying to find more content that explored trans experiences without realizing that I related. I started writing about trans and non-binary characters and like making animations about them. Still not picking up on the fact that maybe I'm writing them and animating them because I relate to them. In grade 11, I finally got really sick of being bullied, so I tried really hard to look like this straight, neurotypical girl. I started to like kind of casually question my orientation at that point because I had no interest in boys and I was very confused about that, but I wasn't having crushes on girls either, so that's why I never really considered that I was a lesbian or maybe bisexual. And then in grade 11 I got kind of curious, so I started looking up like different gender identities and different sexualities and romantic orientations, and I found asexuality and immediately went, that's it. Like there was no question about it. I knew immediately that that was who I was. I like to say that I went through the stages of a gender identity crisis without realizing that that's what was happening. I didn't realize that I was confused about my own gender. I just thought I was confused about the concept of gender as a whole. It's like, it wasn't this big thing that just clicked into place. I just started socially transitioning because that's what felt right. And then I finally realized I was doing it because I was trans. Like I realized after starting transitioning that that's what I was doing. And then as I naturally gravitated towards masculinity, I did ask people to change the words that they were using for me. I think my sister was the first person from my life that I had actually told, although I don't remember telling her. I just know that she knew first. But then the pandemic hit and my disability started to kind of go into remission. I started to feel a lot better because I wasn't surrounded by people who were constantly getting me sick and making everything worse. Like I had time to heal essentially, so I did get a break from feeling so disabled all the time, which finally gave me room to think about maybe you're not a girl. I know a lot of people in my situation like to say that, oh, like COVID was great for them. I don't like to say that. I would never say that COVID was good for me because I lost several people during the whole pandemic. But if Canada didn't go on like full lockdown for quite a while, I don't think that I would have realized that I was trans. Maybe I would, but it definitely would have happened a lot later. Since I wasn't going to school and I didn't have to like perform femininity anymore, I just started wearing my brother's hand-me-downs. I cut my hair short. I started binding without realizing that I was binding. I started learning how to sew binders and just kind of like developing like the concept of how to make a binder because there wasn't anything online about it. I saw a lot of homemade binder tutorials that were unsafe, which I think kind of made this idea that all homemade binding is unsafe, when that's not necessarily the case. It was just that no one had actually figured out what a binder, like a typical commercial style binder, how that's made. So that's when I started developing the plans for how to make one, and eventually I did come up with, I think is my best tutorial yet, which was the first video I put on this channel. When I was 17, I watched She-Ra and the Princesses of Power for the first time, and it was at that point that I finally realized, oh, you're queer. It was the fact that I saw queer people not being demonized for the first time. And I realized that maybe it wasn't a bad thing if I were queer. So I guess it's less of it made me realize that I was queer and more like allowed me to accept it. For those unaware, which should be most people, I actually started on YouTube as an animator back in 2020. This was well before I figured out how to use TikTok. And while on that account, I started watching like TikTok compilations because I did not have TikTok. And that, I think, is what made me realize I don't think that I'm just a cis girl. I don't remember the exact moment that I figured it out. I don't have any memory of like finally coming to this conclusion. However, I definitely changed my pronouns to she, they on my Instagram page at that time. So something about watching other people's experiences made me realize that my experiences were not that of a cis girl. And sure, cis girls can have the experiences that I had, but you know, there was something else going on in my case. I also don't remember when I realized I didn't like she at all and preferred they, them. I think this may have been around the end of grade 12 when I started doing something for my school. And I'm pretty sure the first time I had ever heard someone call me they, them was someone I had never met before, because I had put they, them as my pronouns when I was signing up to be a leader for a particular organization. And then when I met the organizer and she introduced me, she used they, them pronouns for me, and I just kind of sat there like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that's cool. I only had a few friends which found out that I was trans by accident, and I don't remember when. I think it may have been like all the way at the end of the year. I've made multiple videos about this before. I don't remember coming out to people except for like vague recollections of things. I just know that I sat with they, them for a bit. I got to university and they asked my pronouns and I was like they, them without even thinking about it. And then at some point someone asked me if I preferred being called he, him, because I kept getting he, him'd in public because they assumed that I was just like a little boy. And I realized, oh wait, actually maybe I do like he, him better. So I changed my pronouns to he, they, I think that night, which was like really fast compared to other times. I still prefer he, him, but I keep the they in my pronouns just as like an insurance policy, you know, because I get misgendered less if I have more options, you know, for people to say. I know that having similar experiences to people who are trans does not necessarily mean that you are trans, so it can be difficult to actually like figure out if you are in fact trans, but it's okay to be wrong. So I just took it very slow. I was very patient. I didn't have any expectations. I think it also kind of helped in my case that I didn't have a lot of people in my life that I felt needed to know. So I just kind of took some time to myself to figure out how I wanted to identify. Oh, also, when I was younger, I couldn't actually picture myself growing up. If I tried to picture myself as like a grown woman, I couldn't do it. It wasn't like that it felt uncomfortable, it just physically couldn't do it. Like I look at the image that I had crafted in my head, kind of like child me's face placed on top of someone else. It was like, that's not me. Like I guess I have to learn how to be the person that I'm seeing, but that's not me, is it? But if I pictured myself growing up as a man, I never thought to do that as a kid, but then when I started doing it, I realized, oh, maybe I do have a future, and it's one that I'm actually comfortable with. I've always gotten joy from being called a boy or he or man or masculine, but as a kid, I didn't realize that's what that feeling was. Like if I got mistaken as a boy, which happened quite often, I'd get this kind of thrilled feeling that I'd mistake for discomfort, and I would like laugh about it, and then I wouldn't shut up about it to other people. I'd retell the story like over and over again. Other people would be concerned and they would try to like comfort me at the fact that I was called a boy, and I'm just like, no, it's fine, like it's funny. I remember it happened on the first day of 8th grade, and I came home and told my family, and I could not stop smiling. And once again, people around me were really concerned at this, and I was not picking up that people didn't think that this was a good thing like I did. Skipping forward a little bit, the longer that I sat with gender dysphoria and knowing the word for it, knowing what it was, the harder it was to be called girl and to be called she and her. Once I started socially transitioning, I knew it was the right choice because I felt much more comfortable. But then once I had a taste of who I actually was, it became so extremely uncomfortable to hear anything that wasn't true. So if you made it to the end of this video, I don't really have a lot of advice for people because I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I don't even know if I'm interested in like wanting to have like a solid conclusion of how I identify because I don't really care. Gender is a social construct and I just don't really get social constructs. So if you're questioning, it can definitely feel really awkward and really scary because there's a lot of unknowns. But don't be afraid to try out pronouns with people that you trust or people online that don't really know who you are. Or if you can't ask people to use different pronouns for you, you could use different pronouns for yourself in like a story that you're writing, or refer to yourself in the mirror using different pronouns. And don't be afraid to get it wrong. Like, you know, try out different pronouns just to see if you like them. And if you don't like it after maybe a few months, that's okay. You're allowed to change your mind. Gender expression does not equal gender identity. However, you can try out different gender expressions in safe places, like if you have a bedroom, or if you need a place where the door locks, you can go into a bathroom. Then make like a mental note of what you like, what makes you feel more comfortable, what makes you feel less comfortable. And I think my third very important tip is to have patience, because there is, in most cases, no rush. Like when you're a younger adult, you're often trying to figure out who you are, even if you're not having a gender crisis. But if you are having a gender crisis, you don't have to know all the answers immediately, but you can tell people that you trust. Once again, people you feel safe with. Don't tell someone you don't feel safe with. But if you are like struggling with figuring out your gender identity, or you're questioning your gender identity, that isn't something you have to keep to yourself. You can tell people that you are questioning, and maybe they could help you through it. Friends that you trust, or even family if you have family that you can trust, or therapists. If you can afford a therapist, I'm sure those would be helpful as well. Not sure if that kind of video is helpful for people, but if it is, feel free to let me know. And if you have other things you want me to talk about, you can also ask. I can't guarantee that I'll do it, but you know what? Doesn't hurt to ask. I think I want to go lie down now. Goodbye.